My name is Neil Harris. I'm the Deputy Chair of the EPA Advisory Board, as well as being the Chair of the Inclusion Foundation. Today I'm joined by Josh Berle from Mastercard to talk about affordable credit.
Thanks, Neil. Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Berle. I'm with Mastercard, have been for just over a year. I am responsible for government commercial engagement within the UK and Ireland, and I also look after some elements of financial inclusion. I chair the EPA's Financial Inclusion Group, and that's why we're doing this project at the moment.
Thanks, Josh. So to kind of get into the swing of it, a quick question around Mastercard's mission on financial inclusion. How does that translate to your work at the EPA Project Inclusion?
Well, Mastercard's quite interesting because over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, it's in fact orientated itself almost in total to focus on diversity, inclusion, and in fact the strapline of doing well by doing good. In other words, we really try and live and breathe the idea that by doing the right kind of things, surprisingly, is actually really, really good for business. And in a whole host of ways, we've been able to demonstrate that that's the case. Some of that is just because Mastercard, as a large organization, but which offers a network which covers so many different territories in the world, linking that up more creates a sort of network effect of delivering benefit in all sorts of nooks and crannies. But beyond that, there is very much a palpable feel to proactively, go above and beyond in terms of doing well, doing the right sort of thing in lots of different areas, which I guess we'll go on to elaborate on.
Thanks, Josh. And so how does Fintech specifically help in the provision of affordable credit, or how could it help in the provision of affordable credit?
What Mastercard does in this area is what it's done throughout the many, many years, indeed decades of its evolution, which is to develop a market to look at all different, use cases, propositions, areas that could potentially be exploited for business. And those aren't just about, following where the big money is. In many cases, and across the developing world, that's all about looking at where, there isn't as much money, but nonetheless, there are people, and there are people trying to live and people trying to do business. And to what extent can we ease that by connecting them into Mastercard's network. So in terms of fintech is looking to be able to get into those nooks and crannies, not just within the UK, with a variety of different use cases which focus on financial inclusion and social impact and diversity and all the rest of it, but in lots of different markets, developed and developing. And Mastercard's approach will be the same in all of those, which is to say that we can help you scale your business, we can help, we can enable it to do more, we can enable it to exploit digital payments. And yes, of course, Mastercard will make money out of that as well. But we are offering a service that needs to be paid for. But in the meantime, we are offering a significant benefit as well. So we see ourselves as very much enabling fintech exploit these new opportunities and people's imagination in terms of what digital payments can do to, unlock capability and address issues like financial inclusion.
So how can Mastercard help in the access to affordable credit?
So let me give a couple of specific examples. Within the UK, we have the credit union space, which is not that well known, but has been around for many, many years and provides already, in actual fact, cheap and affordable credit to a range of different communities across the UK. But one thing that connects all of them is that these are communities which are likely to be at a higher degree or higher risk of exclusion. So they are performing a really, really useful role. The challenge they face is that many of them don't have a huge amount of money to spend on digital support and on increasing the range of functionality they can offer. So therefore, what these organizations can do are fairly restricted, which therefore means that, what their customers can do is also fairly restricted. However, in recent years, a number of different fintechs have entered this space who are seeking to mobilize and provide services to credit unions so they can look and feel a bit more like, some of the challenger banks, some of the sexier fintechs that are around at the moment, and indeed offer the sorts of services that even established banks can offer too. So Mastercard has sought to engage with those organizations to ensure they've also got all of the latest in terms of what card payments can offer, all of the functionality that comes with that as well, so that these organizations are in a position to then follow that through to credit unions. We see that as being really important because, when it comes to things like welfare disbursements as well, the access that credit unions have got into potentially at-risk communities will be very important from that angle. And with the use of things like prepaid, you can get money out to people who perhaps haven't as traditionally used conventional banking tools. So that's one particular example here in the UK. Elsewhere in the developing world, you've got lots of partnerships that we've engaged in to try and help healthcare and also specific areas like farming and microcredit amongst women, for example, in India and in East Africa as well. These are often local schemes, but where what Mastercard has done through their partnering is enable those schemes to work much more slickly and in a way that looks and feels like the sort of thing we can relate to, but in those local environments, so that money can change hands and money can be spent and money can be accepted in a wider range of environments, even for these relatively small communities and the relatively small amounts of money that they're spending.
So from a Mastercard perspective, in the new year, where do you see the Vista taking you for 2021?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, certainly we'll continue doing more of the same. So our focus will be maintained in this, but to an extent, it will also be intensified. The pandemic, has really focused everyone's attention on exactly these kinds of issues. The impact of the pandemic isn't going to go overnight, even with vaccination programs and all the rest of it. And in the meantime, the benefit that we in partnership with fintechs have been able to deliver will be seen as having delivered benefit that ought to continue regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not. So I suppose my key message is, for those in the fintech community out there who've got new ideas, new propositions, or need a helping hand in terms of how to develop and scale what they're doing, whether it be in the developed world or developing world, please do get in touch, because we'd love to hear from you. It's a real commitment from Mastercard to be engaged in these sectors and do what we can to deliver affordable, low-cost credit and greater financial inclusion.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks so much for your time today. If you guys want to check out more or learn more about the EPA or the Inclusion Foundation, please check out the websites. That's the Emerging Payments Association.org or the inclusionfoundation.org.
Thank you very much.